All right, a very good morning to the viewer of West Nile TV. You're most welcome for the Tuesday edition of the KOKOLIRIKO live show on West Nile TV with me, Farish Majid. And today happens to be the third day into the month of December. We are counting down on, that is towards the festive season. Have you bought the chicken already? Or you're waiting to buy them at expensive prices towards the days in there? My humble appeal would be that you buy them now, as the prices are a bit normal, because we always know the festive season was only being a season where food stuffs are always at higher prices. So in case you are planning to celebrate the festive season right from the Christmas, Boxing Day, New Year, if at all you want to celebrate by also really seeing an animal fall down, better do it now, because by that time the price may be a bit higher, and they believe you must also be having them now, and that is within the homesteads. Also decided that by that time you just also really just slaughter. You do not have to also really start moving here and there looking for what to purchase, because by that time they will be very much expensive. Welcoming on board from wherever you're watching us from in a special way. That is the KOKOLIRIKO live show, the Tuesday edition with me, Farish Majid, and we are going to be delving into some of the discussions where I will be letting you know what's happening within also the investigations. That is of the DHO Arua District Paul Bishop, who was murdered. That was on the 23rd, and I will be giving you details, because if you really look at it, many people have been asking how far has the case gone. Yesterday we were able to also interact with the police as they came out to also really parade one of the suspects, and this is one of the 13 suspects who were arrested in relation to this murder of that is Paul Bishop Duleba, who was murdered brutally. That was in a Gia sub-county in Arua district, and this is something which I will be also letting you know later on. I will also really be letting you know what's happening within also the city. There are really a lot of activities happening. I will be also breaking down on some of those later on, but also really I will be touching something on the remand of Dr. Kano Kiza Besje, who was also remanded yesterday till another date. I will be letting you know that date, and many people have also been issuing and also expressing their concern about this arrest in there, and all the discussion will be coming through on the show this morning. Where are you watching us from? It's a great pleasure having you on board. I want to say welcome aboard, and we are going to be doing this with you up to 9 o'clock. Remember, you two also still can be part of the discussions, where it's quite simple. All you need to do is just drop your comments on our comment section. For those of you who are watching us online, on Facebook, on YouTube, feel free to drop those comments in there, and I will be checking through some of them in there, but that also will be coming through later on, and this is where we shall be summarizing the entire day with what's happening internationally, where I will be letting you know how far maybe the war in Palestine is going, and maybe how far the one of Ukraine is going on, and many people still want to know what is happening in there, and I will be keeping you updated until that war ends, and that is exactly where I will be also letting you know. And also really in sports, I will be summarizing the day as always with what's happening in the world of sports. Which club do you support, and which clubs won last night? And these are some of the issues I will be letting you know in the next hours of the show in there. It's a great pleasure having you on board this morning in Arua City. We are seeing also it's a bright morning. We do not have any signs of rain at the moment. Should we say that the dry spell is already in? Many people also were able to say that, and I was able to interact with the bodaboda rider yesterday, who actually told me he feels we already did the dry season and we're not going to witness any rains again. I'm following up. I want to see if at all he is true, and if he's realistic also in his judgment in there. And I told him really we do not have to judge at the moment, but he actually said he seemed to be so sure, and I will be also following that discussion later on as the days keep on going. That also will be we shall be keeping on to follow if at all indeed the dry spell is already in here. And that is something we must also not worry about, because changes in seasons are always there globally, and also really something which I feel is also really not for us to worry in there. That's something which we shall see moving on out of that. And now to also look at what's happening in the papers, we are seeing ex-Vice President Kazibe out of danger after car crash, and remember we are still talking about road accidents, which are also seeming overwhelming, and I really feel we need to also talk about this. Now, former Vice President, that is Dr. Speciosa Wandera Kazibwe, has been discharged from hospital after she was discharged from hospital, which doctors say she's out of danger after being admitted following a car crash that was on Sunday evening, and that is something which we did see happening, and I really feel we must also be able to be very much keen. This is the season. We always know it. Also, have very many accidents, and that is where we should also really just rely maybe on the drivers. If the driver is over speeding, let's tell them, let's guide them. And as also really passengers, this time is actually very, very much crucial for you. Much as you want to hurry and reach in time, but do you think about reaching safely? Be it also taking long on the roads, because many times we want to reach so faster, and that is why they end up putting even the driver sometimes on pressure, and that is where it also becomes a challenge, where we also really see accidents also being caused in there. Now, police said on Sunday that Dr. Kazibwe and her 17-year-old grandson, that is Luis Gapira Wandera, were rushed to Jinja Regional Referral Hospital after Toyota Land Cruiser they were driving rammed into a utility pole that is at Wakisi village, that's on Njeru Kayunga Road. Now, according to Kiseziba Regional Police spokesperson, that is Ms. Helen Butoto, the front tire of the car burst before Dr. Kazibwe's driver, that is Fred Kayongo, who also got to also have his bodyguard, lost control and veered off the road before ramming into the pole. That means we must also really check our vehicles as we on these roads. Let the vehicles that we are on these roads be the ones that are in good mechanical conditions, what we call the GMCs, not the DMCs, because they are vehicles of two characters. We have the good mechanical conditions, then we have those that are known as the dangerous mechanical conditioned vehicles, which are also really danger to ourselves and the other road users in there. Now, according to him, we did see a team of medical officers at the health facility handling also really the victims of the vehicle, and that is where the former vice president is now said to be very, very much also well in there and out of danger. And Mr. Kayongo said he had been also asked to drive to Kazibwe because her official driver is on sick leave. And Ms. Butoto said Kazibwe was traveling from Kayunga district, heading that is to a residence in Iganga town, when the crash happened. That's Wakisi village in Njeru municipality, Buikwe district. Now that is exactly what we need to see happening. And remember, accidents are always a common scenario, most especially during this festive season. And all that goes back to us, where we must always make sure that we are not also really utilizing the road very, very much badly. Because if you look at this time, definitely it is something which we must always worry about on. And if you do not worry about it, then definitely we may likely see an increase in the rate of accidents happening in the country, which may also not be very, very much well for you in there. Because if you look at accidents, if it does not leave you dead, then it's going to be leaving you injured. Today we have people who are living with disabilities simply because they were involved in accidents where either it's your spinal cord or your legs that get affected, and that is really something very much bad, which also really puts you at danger, where you spend a lot of money treating yourself, where you spend a lot of money, where you become also really a challenge to other people in there. But all in all, it's quite simple. Let's be mindful as we're on these roads. This goes to the drivers. Let's also really think about the road users, most especially the pedestrians, who are the majority population of this country in here, who are mostly walking. Let's be mindful of them. And then the cyclists who are also on these roads, and if you talk about the cyclists, I mean those on motorcycles and also on bicycles, let's also really must mind of them, because many times vehicles knock them. And that is really something which I feel is really very, very much wrong. And then the cyclists also really mess very, very much mind of the pedestrians as well. This roads. Let's look at also really ways of protecting those citizens, most especially those who are also really underprivileged, to walk on these roads in there, because if at all we do not mind about them, then that is going to be very, very much difficult for us to also be talking about that. Then that is how at the end of the day we shall be seeing a lot of issues happening, and that also will be also really another challenge in there. That is something which we may also really be able to also pause for now. And remember, yesterday we were able to see Kano retired Kiza Besje being presented, that's before court, but again his bail application was denied, and that is something also which we did see the lawyers representing him also being very, very much unhappy of, and that is something which also many people also have been talking about. But how do we see these issues happening? How do we avoid issues also really maybe where a person is arrested and then tried by military officers, and then this person also really is being handled by civilian lawyers? Because one of the lawyers also came out and also talked about harassment that is by the military officers yesterday in there. And that is something which we did see happening. And this is Martha Karua, who also really was actually the one who invited Besje to go to Kenya, where he was also picked from. And that is something which we did see happening. And remember, this lady faced a long time also, first of all, of being accredited to also really move on this case, move with this case. And that is something which is happening. And many people have been talking about that. And how do we see this? Because these lawyers came out to sort of talk about harassment. How do we avoid such issues? Most especially where we involve foreigners. Because if you look at Kenya, these are actually our brothers. If at all we start having scenarios with them, first of all, being also really undertaking under such issues, how will that also really be a challenge? And that is where we did see also really the delay that is also really of also the accreditation of Karua to also really stand for BSJ also was another issue which also really made many people to also really expect mixed results. Now lawyers representing Dr. Kiza BSJ and his associate, that is Obed Lutale, stormed the Uganda Law Council offices. That was on Monday, yesterday morning, seeking an update. That is on Martha Karua's temporary practicing license. And Karua, a Kenyan advocate, was expected to lead the 50-member legal team, but was unable to do so without the license. And this is something which we did see happening. And BSJ and Lutale are facing charges of unlawful possession of firearms after being abducted in Nairobi in November 16th, and they were presented before the General Court Martial in Uganda. That was on 20th, and are set to reappear before the same court, and that is something which we did see them appearing on, and we also defied again. Their bail application was actually defied again yesterday, and this is something which also left many people unhappy of. And how do we see all these issues happening in the country, and as a country, how do we also avoid this? Because one of the lawyers who was supposed to also really represent Best in Court, that's Martha Karua, decried rigorous body searches, harassment, that is at the military court in there, and something which did also really feel unhappy of. And now we did see for Justice Minister of Kenya, that is Ms. Martha Karua, also decried what she described as rigorous body searches and harassment by Ugandan military at Machindi Best, that is General Court Martial. And they also, the NRC Kenyan party leader who jettled in Uganda on Sunday, was meant to lead, that's the 50 defense lawyers for veteran opposition activists, Colonel retired Dr. Kiza BSJ and his colleague, that's Obed Lutale, who were allegedly abducted from Nairobi on November 16th as they were arraigned before the General Court Martial in Machindi on Tuesday, that was December 2nd. And now Ms. Karua told reporters that shortly after the adjournment of the session, that the manner in which Uganda's military treated her was extremely demeaning, and that is something which she didn't also feel very, very much happy of. How do we see all this happening? Because if you really now start also having these issues, imagine she goes back to Kenya and says, this is how we were treated in Uganda, what will the Kenyans do? And how do you think this also will be impacting on our relations with foreigners? And that is something also which I feel at the end of the day will be a challenge if at all it is not once addressed very well. And now Dr. Kiza BSJ and Haj Obed Lutale were first arraigned before court on that's on November 20th, and charged also with offences related to national security and unlawful possession of firearms and ammunition. And that is the way we did see the Brigadier Freeman Mugabe chaired court further, and also remanded Dr. Kiza BSJ and Obed Lutale to 10th of December for further mention of the case pending Karua's accreditation. And that is something which we did see happening. And now within these days, should we expect the accreditation, that is of Martha Karua, to also lead the 50th member of lawyers to represent Dr. Kiza BSJ and his counterpart, that is Obed Lutale, because at the moment the accreditation is not complete. And that is something which we did see one of those lawyers who also missed, feeling very, very much unhappy of. And that is something which we did see where the Kenya's former Justice Minister, that's Martha Karua, also is to lead Uganda, and also a political activist, that is Obed Lutale, together with also that is Kiza BSJ, who also will be arraigned in courts of law in the coming days. That's something which we shall be following up on, and we hope at the right time we shall be giving you that detail, because if you look at today is the 3rd of the month of December, meaning they will be there for a period of 1 week. That's when they will be reappearing in court again for the mention of their case. For now, we are going to be taking a short commercial breather. When we bounce back, we shall be continuing the discussion from there. My name is Farish Majid. It's a great pleasure having you on board this morning, watching us from wherever you chose to watch us from. We say thank you so much. We don't take it for granted. We are always proud to have you watching us. For now, it's a short commercial break. When we get back, the discussions will follow.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Look out for StarTimes Solar to unwrap your lighting and entertainment experience this Christmas.
We wish you a Merry Christmas.
At only 700 shillings daily charge, get yourself a StarTimes S50 that comes with lighting, phone charging, strong lithium battery, radio with a flash port and a Bluetooth speaker. For more entertainment needs, get yourself a StarTimes S130 that comes with an extra 32-inch TV screen and 2 years free StarTimes subscription. StarTimes Solar, more than just solar.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
All right, welcome back. We are already in the second hour of the second half of the first hour, and this is where we shall be continuing with our discussions as always up to 9 o'clock. In case you are just joining us for the very first time, you are most welcome. This is the KOKOLIRIKO live show that comes your ways every Mondays to Fridays with me, Farish Majid, where sometimes also we bring guests on topical matters where we discuss on issues of national importance, and this is where also we want to make sure first we are informed, and then secondly entertained, and then above all also educated, because we do not want to leave you out in any aspect of life. And that's why the KOKOLIRIKO live show is always in place from Mondays to Fridays to do that for you, and that is how we continue with our day, as we also really perform our task of making sure that you get information. And earlier on, remember I was talking to you about a story where also really some people have already been arrested in relation to the murder of Paul Bishop Dleba, the rural district also really health officer, was murdered down. That was on the 23rd in Ajia. That is also in Oyako. Today, many people have already been arrested, and that is something also which we feel must also really know about. And that is something which we feel also really you as the viewer should be definitely also really in the know of, because yesterday we were able to see police parading one of the suspects who actually confessed to have had a hand that is also really in the murder of the Arua district also really health officer in there, something which was very much bad and very much embarrassing also at the same time in there. Now the killers of the acting district health officer, that is Paul Bishop Leba, we are also really said to be 13, and one person that was already in the names of Asiku Richard, a 36-year-old, also came out to confess that he participated, that is in the incident that happened in Oyaku, Ombokoro Parish, that's in the Jessup County, and he has been hiding, and this is where he was arrested by the youth from one of the hideouts that was still within a Jessup County. Remember, this issue has been there. Many persons have been arrested in relation to that. And two, I remember we are picked, that is from Madiokolo, and this is as they had escaped to Rhino Camp. And this is something which we feel people should also really be able to learn of. You must avoid issues of taking the laws into your hands. Because if you start taking the laws into your hands, then that is how you are going to be living your life. Just imagine if this part listened and had not participated in such a criminal activity. They will be demanding for their land, if at all this land is theirs. They will be using the right channels to demand for their land, even if the late had encroached on their land. Still, they would be also in position to still demand and advocate for their piece of land. And this is something which I feel wasn't proper, and we must therefore also avoid issues of mob action, because mob action is never a good crime, and it's something which we must also really discourage in our society, and people should also really avoid engaging in activities of mob action, because mob action is never good, and it has also really had its own issues where people also really have been killed. And just like the doctor, many people also really have been able to also talk about this. And today, when you talk about all that, it's really something which is really very, very much wrong. And Paul Bishop was laid to rest amidst also really demands for justice, and I believe these 13 suspects also will now face the courts of law, and they will have to also answer for their crimes. And at the right time also we shall be keeping updated. Remember, these 13 were also said to be at Arosene police station, pending to be presented before court for the mention of their cases. And this is where we expect justice for them. And the land also was said to be demanded to be given to government. Many people demanding the government should take over this piece of land and also do something in the names of Paul Bishop Leba. And this is something which we also want to talk about. And remember, to these people who are planning to buy land in these villages, my appeal will be that buy lands which also have no issues. Much as people also are selling the land, sometimes they sell the land to multiple also the owners. It becomes a challenge where you also have to battle court cases, and that is something which we feel at the end of the day is going to be very, very much wrong. But that is one thing also which we shall be also talking about as we get move on with the show, and I will be keeping you posted on some of those issues also which I feel you as the viewer should be in position to understand. And that is how we shall be continuing with our discussions. And at the right time, I will be letting you know when this will be presented before court, and also for the mention of their cases, because mob action indeed remains a great concern and something which we must always discourage in the strongest terms. And that is where at the end of the day we shall be seeing also really that also really happening, because if you don't talk about it, then definitely it is still going to be our people who will be suffering the negative repercussions of this vice called mob action, which has claimed lives over the years, where we are still seeing many people dying as a result of mob action. Just a small shout, for instance, a thief. Your days may be numbered. Your hours of living may actually be narrowed down, and this is where you need to also pray that you do not die. And this is one thing also which we must also discourage in the strongest terms, because mob action is never a solution. Even if we have issues, how do we sit down and resolve these issues without necessarily engaging on that is mob action? That is how at the end of the day we shall be seeing also really those issues happening. And that is one issue also which we feel at the end of the day will be also really very, very much good for us to also be talking about. And that is where we are going to be posting that discussion aside as we get to move on. Now, Fort Portal City officials are arraigned on charges of abuse of office, and this is where we are seeing 3 officials, that is from Fort Portal City, have been arraigned before the Anti-Corruption Court on charges of abuse of office. Now the officials are identified as Kagawa Richard Ndora, the former acting also deputy town clerk, and we have Chom Hendo Susan, a senior accountant and secretary of the Service Commission, and Ben Mutoro Musinguzi, an office assistant who also serves as an assistant records officer, as they accused of forging and issuing, that is, appointment letters to 23 applicants without clearance from the Public Service Commission, and that is where we did see also really them also forging those letters. Now, the alleged office offences occurred between November 2022 and July of 2023, and according to the charge sheet, the officials have backdated also the appointment letters to June 29th, 2023, just one day or so before a crucial circular issued by the Ministry of Public Service on June 30th of 2023. Now, the circular suspended all recruitments. And that is where we did see that it lacked also proper clearance, and the action is in direct also in violation of multiple earlier directives from Ministry of Public Service and Public Service Commission, and that has also regarded these guidelines and proceeded with unauthorized appointments. That is something which landed them in trouble. Now, the arraignment also really carried out by State House and Corruption Unit was in collaboration with the Criminal Investigation Department and Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, in another move also against corruption, which within the public service recruitment processes. And remember, today many people also do not have trust in the Public Service Commission, and this is also something where we do have issues when people are recruited. Many times today many people don't want to apply for these government jobs because they feel the owners are in there, most especially within the local governments. Many times people do not want to apply for these jobs. They're losing trust because they feel without kitu kidogo, or without also having what we call a technical know-how, it's going to be a challenge for you to become also really a government worker in there. And that is something which also the government must also really cleanse its images on, because if they don't do so, then many people are going to be continuing with these issues. And now the accused have been remanded until December 4th, and that is tomorrow, as the court prepares to hear the case. Now, the development also underscores the government's commitment to ensuring transparency and accountability in public office, are aiming to restore public trust in the recruitment processes. And this is something which also I feel should be done, because many times people do not have trust, and transparency within the public service is lacking. And I really feel that the recruitment processes needed to be changed. I feel something should be done. The interviews should be done online, and also making people to sort of work in some of these interview places. And this is really something which at the end of the day leaves people also having no trust in government jobs. And now the Anti-Corruption Court also action resolute with the broader, that is the Expose the Corrupt campaign, which seeks to also bring corrupt officials to justice and promote integrity in the public service. Do we have people who are of integrity? Do we have those leaders? Remember, the National Integrity Awards are ongoing. This is for people who exhibit some bit of integrity within the different sectors. Most of those who are serving the communities, we need to also acknowledge them. Is there anybody who does not also pick corruption money? Is there any leader you know that does not pick also really what we call bribes? Feel free to walk to the nearest TSO, that is a civil society organization, or any other NGO, and ask for these forms to nominate those leaders whom you feel deserve to be appreciated. Because we need to appreciate them. In this world today, many times, many people really are not worthy being appreciated. Do we have the few? Do you know of any? I think it's quite good and proper for us to also really acknowledge them of the good things they're doing, because corruption has rendered many of us also in challenges. Many of us have also been pushed out because of issues of corruption, and that is where also we feel we must also really eradicate this vice of corruption, because corruption, first of all, has had its own negative implications. Government has lost huge sums of money. Many people have lost their lives just because of issues of corruption, because money that was to be channeled to service delivery may not reach out. And that is how it becomes a great concern. That is where I say corruption affects all of us. Me and you are all affected by the vice of corruption. That means we therefore have to do something to also make sure that this vice is not there. And that is where at the end of the day we shall be seeing improvement in service delivery, something which we feel will be very, very much good for us to sort of be able to talk about. Now, this is where we are going to be posing the discussion, and as we get to move on, we shall be also looking at some of the other stories. And if you look at that, you are seeing Uganda hosting the 7th Chemical Emergency Response Training for East African Community, and that is something also which I feel may be very good for us as a country if we start hosting these national events. And this is where we are now seeing Uganda is hosting the 7th annual training on chemical energy response for East African community partners, also that at the Uganda Rapid Deployment Capability Center. This is in Jinja, where we are seeing the 10-day event is organized by the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development, and has brought together 35 participants from 7 out of the 8 East African community members, with guidance from regional experts and specialists from the Czech Republic, and that is something which we are seeing happening in now. The training first also was hosted by Ghana in 2015, which highlights the nation's leadership in chemical safety and emergency preparedness, and that is something which we feel is also really very much good for us as a country to jubilate and celebrate over. And now it aims to equip first responders with chemical, also practical skills to handle chemical-related emergencies, including that also knowledge of chemical warfare agents. We do have individual protective measures, detection techniques, and also decontamination procedures. And that is also where we do also have this also expect this training to move on and centered also around those areas. And while officiating the event, State Minister for Labor, Gender and Employment and Industrial Relations, that is Esther Nyakun, stressed the critical role lots of chemicals in various sectors, such as agriculture. If you talk about agriculture, also you realize that we need those fertilizers, and these are chemicals which also will help our crops solely to grow very, very well in the. Meanwhile, in industry, we need those chemicals. First of all, in also really making some of those issues, those detergents and those reagents which are added, all also chemicals. And then in health, those medicines, to keep them very well, sometimes they deserve some chemicals to be mixed with, and that is why it becomes very, very much crucial for us to also be talking about the benefits of this symposium, also which is making also sure that people also get trained. And we did see the minister noting that also associated risks, including accidents and malicious use, are also out there, and that is why this training becomes paramount. And this is where she added that as a developing country, having a national or regional response team for chemical emergencies is crucial, and I really feel it is something which we must also really advocate for. Now, Uganda's progress in chemical management has been acknowledged by Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, and as a signatory to the Chemical Weapons Convention that was since 1993, and the ratifying member since 2001, Uganda has established a national authority hosted by the Department of Occupational Safety and Health to ensure compliance with also the CWC, and that is something which we feel is very much good. And now the nation further demonstrated its commitment by enacting the Toxic Chemical Prohibition and Control Act of 2016, and that's where we did see it introducing regulations in 2023. And these efforts have also positioned Uganda as the annual host for the regional chemical emergency response training, and that is something which we did see as a country also where we have been also really privileged to host this. And what are the participants saying? Lieutenant Colonel David Wakaya, attached to Uganda Rapid Deployment Capability Center, highlighted the training's practical approach, while Sudan Nyandinga, the overall commander that is of the training, commended the collaboration among the East African community partner states. And that is where we did see Sultan Nyandinga, the overall commander of the training, also praised the collaboration and also praised all those who turned up for the training. And Babatunde Olokukere, representing that is the OP, the CW, reaffirmed the importance of the regional preparedness in handling that is chemical response. Now the annual training underlines the East African community's commitment to enhancing what we call regional chemical safety and emergency responses. And participants will leave the improved capacity to detect, respond to, and mitigate chemical threats, reinforcing the region's also collective security framework. And that's why the training is actually timely for all those persons within the East African community. And now the event marks another milestone in Uganda's efforts to ensure safety and preparedness, reaffirming its commitment that is also related to safety in emergency responses that's within East African community. And that is where at the end of the day we shall also be very much happy of, if at all we have issues where emergencies are happening, risks are happening, and we are able to handle them without necessarily losing lives. That would be quite well, and that's where I feel at the end of the day we must also really be able to talk about all that, and that is where at the right time we are going to be safe. Also really to be with some of those issues, and that's where we are going to be posing with that discussion aside. And if you look at that, you will look at also some of those issues already happening also in there, and that's where we are posing with that discussion. But looking at some of the stories happening in there, we did see a man at the age of 82 shows up in Machindi to stand also in security for Best J, and that's something which we did see happening in there. And remember, the lawyers were not happy about also the delays in accreditation of one of their colleagues, and then they also reported the harassment that is at the match in the court. And also another scenario which also left many people wondering was the show of an 82-year-old man who turned up to stand as surety for the retired Colonel Kiza Besje. And now the 82-year-old man turned up at the Machi General Court Martial on Monday, intending to also stand as surety for the position steward, that is Kiza Besje. And Muse John Kizosim Chiwanuka was among the hundreds of family members, politicians, and well-wishers who turned up at Machindi also to see Besje gain his freedom. And that is where we did see court martial chaired by General Freeman Mugabe. That's the hope of also Besje and his ashes, that is Lutale, and where they were further remanded to December 10th. Now the adjournment prompted also by defense request, citing the need for more time to also secure a temporary also practice license for their lead counsel, that is Martha Karua. Now former Kenyan Justice Minister Martha Karua also requires a specific certificate to practice law in Uganda, and that is what we call a temporary certificate practice license. Remember, for the lawyers, it's not just something where you walk in to do something in like that. They have regulations, they have guidelines, and I really feel all the professions needed to have such guidelines. It's really something which I would feel would improve on all the professions. Today we have professions that are not totally guided. Somebody just walks in and starts practicing, and that is where it becomes a great challenge. For instance, where also really guide issues, also when this person also starts moving out of the ethics, it becomes a really great challenge. But I really feel the lawyers also really are privileged, and they must really be happy that also for you to practice, there are certain criteria and certain procedures for you to follow before you start also really taking also your own issues in. And now, despite also application November 25th, the certificate had also it has not been issued. That was on Tuesday. And where we did see Ms. Karua alongside Ugandan lawyers, that's Arias Lukwago and Aaron Kiza visited the Uganda Law Council to expedite the process. And I was able to see Aaron Kiza also really exchanging and also really becoming also very, very much unhappy about the same issue. And now they informed that the document is still under review and likely to be completed by Wednesday, which is today, and December 4th. And now before the adjournment, the defense team also held a 30-minute closed-door meeting with also BSJ to discuss the next steps. And the trial also has garnered significant public interest, with Karua's also involvement symbolizing Uganda's legal framework for fraternity solidarity. However, temporary also inability to formally represent BSJ due to also what we call procedural requirements has added delays also to the high profile case. And that is where we did see Dr. BSJ and Utali are now also set to return to court on December 10th for further mention of the case. And many people have not been happy about this, with others only expressing dismay about this matter. But how do we also intend to see this matter ending? And that is where at the right time we shall be seeing also many of that discussion coming up on board, and we shall also really be seeing that also really at the right time. And do we also really expect this? It is something also really which we feel must also really be able to also talk about. Now, Mao's push for electoral reforms faces political resistance is another issue which we are seeing on the morning papers here. This is on the Nile Post, and this is something also which we feel we must also really be able to talk about, because if the Justice and Constitutional Affairs Minister is pushing for electoral reforms, which also face resistance from political resistance, and that is something also which we feel will be very much bad. And now the Justice Minister, Robert Mao, has recently outlined a series of proposed electoral reforms aimed at addressing what we call key challenges in Uganda's electoral system. However, the absence of these reforms on the parliamentary agenda has led to skepticism and also raised suspicions among members of parliament, and that's something which we did see also. Many also reviewed the delays as politically motivated strategy, with some questioning the feasibility of these reforms under the current political landscape. And if you look at the proposed also reforms, we have also restating the present time limits. We have the electoral system reform, that's a transition to a parliamentary system, independent electoral oversight. We have political party reforms, campaign finance transparency, and if you look at the campaign transparency, also finance transparency, then this is where we are going to be talking about issues of money and political concerns on Mao's reform agenda also have been solely hampered, and that is where we are seeing delays. And the political analysts have expressed doubt over the likelihood of Mao's proposed reforms being adopted and given the entrenched political environment, and that is where many activists feel this may not necessarily appear on the order paper. Now, Professor Rogers Baringayomwe, a political analyst, argued that meaningful reforms are likely and unlikely in a system where policies are primarily created to protect individual interests rather than public good, and that is where he warns that any attempt by Mao to challenge also really the status quo within the cabinet should also really could result in serious political consequences, and maybe where he may also really be changed, and that is where many people also really feel that may not be very much well. But how do we see this? And how ready do we need these also reforms? And this is where we have seen many political analysts also really have talked about that. But as a country, I feel we need these reforms. And one of the reforms where I feel need to also be changed is the councillors. Because yesterday in Moyo, we did see the councillor, we did see the leaders also calling for constitutional review. That is, first of all, where the councillors also papers must also be reviewed. Because for now, for it to become a councillor, you don't need any papers. Be it even P7, you don't even need it. They don't need it from you. It's just you showing interest. And I believe that has been having issues. First of all, the kind of leaders we have been having. And my own appeal would be that at least let it be senior 6. Then the members of parliament needed also to be reviewed, where it should be at least a degree holder, not also a senior 6. Just imagine a member of parliament who is a senior 6 holder and is leading PhDs. What do you think this also will be implying? And do you think the PhD holders will by any means give any respect to this also leader, where if at all the leader starts messing up? And that is where at the end of the day we are going to be seeing issues. And I really feel these reforms need to be done. Then the monetization of the politics is another issue under the constitutional reviews, but we are counting down less than 13 months. How ready are we for all that? Because if you look at the next 13 months solely to the next general elections, and without the constitutional reviews, then I feel something is not going to be right. When do we need these reforms? And I feel at the right time, definitely we needed these reforms to make sure that we move forward. Because if we not move forward, then that is how it is going to be a great challenge. And also the big task also for us to also make sure we talk about. Now, despite all the ambitious nature of Mao's proposed reforms, there are prospects also from also seem uncertain in light of resistance, as they may also be faced within the political also establishment. Now, with analysts predicting the little appetite for genuine also responses, that is also another challenge that we feel may also be right, because if the minister also is proposing for this, and then the political also leaders are not supporting, then that is how it is going to be very, very much a challenge, which may also affect us. And that is where we would also want to see that, and that is where we would also want to see these matters be put aside. Because if we not do so, then it's going to be a great challenge. And with that also, we are going to pause for the discussions now, and we shall be continuing in the second hour of the show. This is the KOKOLIRIKO live show on Western TV, and I really want to welcome you on board in case you are just joining us right now from wherever you're watching us from. I want to say thank you so much. Our final destination, of course, remains 9 o'clock. That's after 9. That's when I will be paving way for the Elders News team to come through and give you what's happening in the bulletins in there. But before that, we are going to be taking a short commercial break. When we bounce back, we shall be continuing with the discussion from there. My name is Farish Majid.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Look out for StarTimes Solar to unwrap your lighting and entertainment experience this Christmas.
We wish you a Merry Christmas.
At only 700 shillings daily charge, get yourself a StarTimes S50 that comes with lighting, phone charging, strong lithium battery, radio with a flash port and a Bluetooth speaker. For more entertainment needs, get yourself a StarTimes S130 that comes with an extra 32-inch TV screen and 2 years free StarTimes subscription. StarTimes Solar, more than just solar.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
All right, welcome back into the second hour of the show. This is still a KOKOLIRIKO live show. We are 5 minutes after 8 o'clock. It's a great pleasure having you on board, watching us this morning from the different parts of the country where you should be watching us from. I want to say thank you so much. And this is where we are going to be discussing a number of pertinent issues with you also participating. Remember, you too still can be part of the discussion by sharing your thoughts and opinions on what we shall be discussing. Now, West Nilers have been empowered on climate justice in relation to service delivery, and if you look at what's happening right now, we have a conference in Arua City, that is a Desert Breeze Hotel, where we are having the different leaders being brought together. Now, West Nile Development Association, which is abbreviated as WENDA, in partnership also really to advocate for also really development and also environment, have organized 2 days training for civil society organizations across West Nile sub-region. That started yesterday and will be ending today, aiming at enhancing their roles as also intermediaries between citizens and local government authorities on issues related to service delivery, monitoring, and climate justice. And if you look at all this, then you realize service delivery is something we must also really give our attention to monitor, because if you not monitor it, then definitely at the end of the day, it is also really us to miss out. What about climate justice? It is us who also contributing to the negative changes of climate change. It is us. We are the ones cutting down the trees. We are the ones encroaching on the wetlands. It is definitely us who are contributing to climate injustice. So I think it is something which we must also take on and blame ourselves and also work towards restoring. And that's why this summit is coming up on board to make sure that these issues of climate justice and service delivery are improved on. And Eugene Semakula, a research fellow with Advocate Coalition for Development and Environment, says that they engaged CSOs because they feel they are operating also in the same space, and urges them to credible also to use to also really do what it takes by performing also towards ensuring what we call service delivery monitoring and climate justice, and all these are critical areas which I feel is very, very much good for us to be also talking about. Now, we did see similarly, Paul to members, a research fellow with Advocate believes natural resources cannot be able to also really succeed without engaging the local CSOs, and that is why the CSOs are also very, very much crucial for also really undertaking some of those activities. We did see Adamati Aldo, Head of Partnerships and Strategic Development, Host Hub, also says so many people have also been looking at climate change in academic perspectives, but this engagement also will show them to also change their motive by understanding in a local manner, and that is something also which we did see many also STS also talking about. Now we did see Maneno Masi, a program officer with Mempro, laments by saying if services are delivered positively, it will not affect climate change, and this is quite true. Let's imagine a scenario where women are also being talked about the dangers of climate change, and then electricity is very much cheap and it is stable, and that is service delivery, and that is where also really it is a bit cheaper. People who are also really the ones contributing to the destruction of this environment are going to have no option of relying on electricity, because first of all it is also very much convenient, very much cheap, and then easier to use, and that is where at the end of the day people are going to be dropping some of those issues which they are also being affecting, and that is where we shall be seeing service delivery first of all improved, then we shall be seeing the environment protected, and that's how we shall be ensuring climate justice. And that is one issue which we feel is very, very much critical, and we must therefore as stakeholders also interest ourselves in and make sure that we also really draw means to ensure that these issues are not also taken lightly. And this is a 4 years project implemented in Western and Karamot sub-region, funded by the Royal Danish Embassy, that basically also seeks to strengthen civil engagements and service delivery, monitoring, and also really climate justice in Uganda. And I will be also really keeping posted on those discussions in the coming days as our correspondent and our reporter is on ground to also bring for us more details of what's happening on ground there. And I will be also keeping posted in relation to that in the coming days. And still moving on, we did see also that's also something which we did see over the weekend. That's where we are able to see also really some stakeholders also being brought together to also really encourage and also embrace sports to fight non-communicable diseases, and that's what happening in Yumbe. So a strategy to also make sure that we eradicate the communicable diseases, and such as stroke, heart diseases, and chronic diseases such as also diabetes, and these are diseases that have also become very much common today. And now officials from Yumbe Regional Hospital are asking the community members to embrace sports. Usually people don't want to exercise, and that's how it also becomes a challenge, and that is one issue which we did see happening. And this strategy is now being developed by Yumbe Regional Hospital, forming also the health hospital club to help also curb its rate. Now this was witnessed on the 30th, and that's something which we did see happening when they organized the 5-kilometer health walk. That's also from the hospital to Yumbe town, also really for the staffs and community members and some government officials to also walk through and walk the journey of ensuring a healthy community. We all have a role to play in terms of ensuring that we live in a healthy community, because if you don't live in a healthy community, then that is how it is going to be very, very much challenging. Look at all these diseases which are also within the society today affecting all of us. They do not spare anybody, they affect us all, and that's how it really becomes a challenge for us to sort of be talking about all that. That is where now I feel we should therefore embrace some of those strategies to make sure that these issues not also happen within our society and we not die of these diseases anymore. It is quite simple for us to also just embrace what we call exercise. Usually there's a saying, work without play makes Jack a dull boy. Even if you're sitting in that office, always have time for exercise. You can choose to walk back. Walk. If you feel you cannot walk, go for gym. If you feel you cannot go for gym, run. If you feel you cannot run, aerobics are there. So it is all about what you want, but always getting that time. It is good for your health. It is something which we must always advocate for, and we must also interest ourselves in. And if we interest ourselves in it, then that is how it is going to be very, very much good for us to also be talking about all that. And that is how we shall be also attaining all what we want. And that is how we shall be realizing also an end to also the cases of also heart diseases and heart failures happening within our society. And that is how we shall be also continue with that. And we hope at the right time also we are in place to make sure that we attain what we want to solely attain. Because usually we say a healthy mind is a wealthy one, because usually there's a saying health is wealth, and indeed it is wealth, because if at all you are sick, then all the monies you have are going to be spent on drugs. You're going to be spending them a lot of time on hospitals, and that is how you will be also missing out also on some of those things that you want to also do, and that is where it will be also very much challenge for you. And that is how we also want to ask you, as the viewers and as the persons who are in those offices right now, give time for yourself also to make sure that you are not also left out. That is how we are going to be continuing, and we hope at the right time we shall be seeing also changes in relation to what we want to also achieve in there. And that is what we also hope. And remember, in all the areas, we are also seeing the return of the Indio residual spray also happening. Remember, malaria still remains a great challenge as we're talking about health. Malaria still remains a great concern, and that's now where we are seeing the local governments, most especially those out of the city, urban areas, are also launching what we call the Indio residual spray. In Marioko yesterday, we did see the district also together with also the other officials launching the third round of the Indio residual spray, and that's where we did see the Marioko RDC, that is Mr. Masereka Joshua, taking lead also in launching this exercise. And Marioko district is the moment also of darkness, and that's also where we did see them also losing Nick Nathaniel, the mayor council of Ofaka sub-county, who also doubled as secretary for finance. Marioko district local government, who passed away, and that's as a result of pneumonia, and that is also something which we feel is also quite sad. As they're launching the indoor residual spray, they're also mourning the demise of one of their councillors, and this is where it feels also very much bad. And we also condoling and also praying with the people of Marioko district, a young district solely where also if at all the young people are losing their lives like that, then it's quite absurd. Very much so difficult, and I know it's a difficult moment for them to solely lose the councillor at this critical time. And we continue for the soul of the deceased to rest in eternal peace, as also we continue following up on what is happening in Marioko district in there. And I will be keeping updated in relation to what's solely coming out of there, and I hope at the right time we shall be also having a lot of those issues all discussed in there. And that is where we shall be continuing with the discussion, and I hope at the right time we shall be having more of that discussion sort of going on. And we hope also that also will not be leaving us out. And if you look at all that, it is something which we feel we must embrace. The Israel resistance spray, the second lot, I remember had issues, most especially in Terego, where people were able to remove bows and arrows, a very much difficult scenario. And I really feel at the right time, people are going to be missing out if at all they do not embrace certain of those activities. But it's also very much important for us to embrace what we call the Indio residual spray exercise to make sure that we are also not left out. Leaving that discussion aside, persons living with disability demand a quota system in public jobs. That is something where we're seeing, as Uganda Prayers commemorate the International Day for Persons Living with Disability, also taking place today. Persons living with disability are asking the government to introduce a quota system for their employment, and a proposed system also they say should be developed in consultation with the Ministry of Disability Affairs and the National Council for Persons Living with Disability. And now speaking at a press conference recently, that was the Kumi District Persons Living with Disability leaders called on the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development also to fulfill its long-standing also commitment to produce annual reports on the employment status of the person living with disability. And now they emphasize that accountability and data-driven also policies are crucial for addressing the systematic also challenges faced by their community. And Esther Kiozi, the CEO of the National Union for Disability in Uganda, also stressed the importance of immediate government action in addressing these areas. As she also highlighted the need for expanding social assistance That's the grant also the empowerment, that's the SAGE programs, and increasing university admissions for students with disability and affirmative action policies. And now Treasury urged government collaborations between government entities and DIPU to ensure district teams implementing the policy development model trained also in disability inclusive programs and skills in there, and that is how they feel they must also be inclusive. And the programs must therefore also have them also be catered for. And if at all that is also not done so, then they would also feel very much bad. Now the annual observance not only promotes understanding of disability issues, but also advocates for the dignity, rights, and well-being of the PWDs. And now the PWD leaders remain optimistic that the event will inspire meaningful change and reinforce Uganda's commitment to building an inclusive society. And that is how we shall be also seeing that happening. And we hope at the right time we shall be seeing all those issues already be addressed in the country, and that's how we shall be also posing the discussion. And we hope at the right time also the issues of persons living with disability. Remember, everybody is a potential candidate to disability, as they always say, and we do not also want to also pray that we are also treated at one time badly, where we feel also we are also being left out. And that is where we shall be also seeing that discussion also aside. And remember, as the country has been witnessing also the rise in water levels following the heavy downpour, police have also called for increased caution amidst rising disaster casualties, and that is what we are seeing happening. And remember, in Bulambuli, we also did see the death toll rising 28, and also in Pakwach, we also lost people. So I think it is also the time as a country where we're witnessing disasters, but now we are seeing the Uganda Police Force have urged the public to exercise heightened caution as harsh weather conditions continue to claim lives across the country, where a combination of persistent rains, flooding, and also mudslides have led to multiple tragedies in the recent weeks, also with officials warning of further risks if safety measures are not prioritized. And we did see Assistant Commissioner of Police Kituma Rusoke, who is also the police spokesman, describing the situation as critical, citing numerous also incidents of loss of life and devastation. And now recent incidents include the recovery of an identified man's body from River and Pologoma in Budaka district on November 24th. And we did see the discovery of Julius Semambo's body in a stagnant water at an abandoned solely house in Wakiso district, Lubiji wetland. That's on November 25th. And that is where we feel all these issues are very much also important for us to talk about. And the particular tragic incident also, the event occurred on November 27th when UNRWA's engineer Hassan Yahya drowned while attempting to rescue passengers trapped that is in the water floods on the Pakwach Niue Road. And now the body of female passenger from the same vehicle was later recovered on December 1st. And Master in Bulambuli on November also claimed life, where we did see the death toll said to be rising 28. As such, and rescue teams have so far retrieved 27 bodies, with death toll said to be at 28 after one victim succumbed in the hospital on November 30th. Now, in light of these events, police have also emphasized the importance of safety precautions, most especially during the rainy season, and they advised residents to avoid crossing flooded also areas and stay indoors during heavy rains and keep emergency contacts readily accessible. And that is what we did see happening in there. And now the rising casualties also underscores the urgent need for both individuals and also broader also what we call disaster preparedness to mitigate the impact of severe weather patterns. And that is something which we feel also really is very much important for us to solely be able to talk about. If you look at what happened in Bulambuli recently, the death toll is said to be at 28. Now the devastating landslide that struck also Bulambuli district last week claimed the lives of 28 people, with most more casualties also feared to as recovery efforts continue. And the landslide which occurred in the Bulangaya and Suti sub-counties buried several homesteads and families trapped under debris, and that is something which we did see happening. And today many people already are said to be trapped in there. Many people also living in fear. And I really want to say, yes, we have to live in fear because of the rains, but we also have to do also what we call precaution measures. And the tragic incident also has left many families devastated and hundreds of others displaced as well in there. And according to Fairan Mpalanyi, the resident district commissioner, that is also of Bulambuli district, the number of missing individuals remains uncertain as such operation missions continue. And the search also operation led by local community and bolstered by over 300 UPDF officers has further supported also by the delivery of an excavator, which was delivered on Sunday. And the equipment also has enabled workers search through the thick mud and debris and more effectively. And now in response, the disaster efforts are underway to evacuate residents from other high-risk areas to safer zones. And now a significant number of displaced individuals also really has been also moved to Butanguya, where they are currently staying in temporary shelters, including tents provided by Uganda Red Cross Society and development partners. And that is where we are now seeing them also be kept in those areas. Usually in the tents, the conditions are also not well. First of all, food is not always in time. And then issues of shelter, really, it's a challenge. And that's why sometimes people feel they need to go back. I want to give an example of what happened in the Elgon region, that was in Bali. People were relocated, but they went back because the areas where they were taken to also were a bit small, where they could not do also what they used to do in their areas, and they felt they needed to go back. And that is where we are saying we want to discourage that. We do not want to see you also really falling in trouble, because if you see that happening, then that is how it is going to be a challenge. Now, as the government works on resettling displaced people, the community is also calling for immediate action to prevent further losses and provide essential living conditions for those affected. Now, in the meantime, residents and relief teams continue search for and recovery efforts, hoping to bring closer to the grieving families and prevent further tragedy. And that is exactly what we are keenly following up on. We want to see how, of course, that also will be ending, and if at all more bodies also will be recovered, then that's how it is going to be very much good for us to also be advocating for. And we hope at the right time, that is how we shall be seeing improvement in the livelihood of the people, and that is how we shall be seeing also that happening. And we hope at the right time, we shall be seeing hope for the people. Now, hundreds benefit from Chabazinga Health Camp in Kaliro district, and remember also in Kaliro, that is under Soka sub-region, we are seeing close to 1,000 residents. So that's of Kaliro district, also that's of the Bulamogi chiefdom, and surrounding areas have received medical care during a one-day health camp. That's in Nyamwimwa Health Center 3, and the initiative also was spearheaded by Obua Chabazinga, that's Wabusoga, and the Chabazinga Initiative Organization in partnership with the Rotary E-Club of Naguru. And the health camp brought together healthcare professionals from Jinja Regional Referral Hospital, the Ministry of Health, Musana Health Center 3, and also the Namimwa Health Center 3. And services that we had included as cervical breast and prostate cancer, tuberculosis diagnosis, sickle cell testing, HIV/AIDS and counseling, diabetes and malaria testing, prenatal testing, and dental care, not forgetting eye care also being also given to the people. And the Soga sub-region district of Kaliro, and that is something which really is happening, also being brought together by the kingdom, all aiming at improving service delivery. Now the camp success was attributed to efforts of OHTWA, that's Babilo Yudaya Chigenyi, the head of the Chabazinga Initiative Organization, and the Julius Kaungu Musingu, and the Rotary also successful. And the success story comes also that at that time, where the Rotary also E-Clubs Naguru, led by President that's Flyover Bwire, played a role in organizing and executing this event. And that is what we did see, where Kaliro District Chairperson Elijah Kagoda also expressed appreciation, noting that the camp addressed critical healthcare gaps in the district also, which faces as challenges such as inadequate medical facilities, a shortage of healthcare professionals, and treatment costs, which also really affects many people from also really accessing these services. Now also with this initiative, that is also going to make sure that people access this medical treatment at high and at low affordable rates, which is really good for them. And we hope at the right time, this also will be extended to other areas. It shouldn't also just remain in Kaliro. We want to see the same extended to Iganga. We want to see the same extended to Jinja. We want to see the same also extended to Lugazi, and all that also will be very, very much good for the people within the surrounding areas to also benefit from the initiative and the kingdom. And that is where many people will be happy about that. And that's what we did see happening. And we hope at the right time also really what also will be happening. Now, one of the stories as we get to give you also before this hour of the show clocks is where we did see Pastor Bujingo controversially urging government to regulate burial days, and that's something which we did see, where Pastor Bujingo also called upon government to regulate burial days. Very controversial. What do you think about that? Where we did see Pastor Aloysius Bujingo of the House of Prayer Ministries at Canaan Land, that's in Chikoni, has called on the government to introduce laws regulating also burial days in Uganda, and drawing inspiration from neighboring countries like Kenya and Rwanda. Bujingo believes such regulation also really will address inefficiencies and also really financial burden on grieving families, and that's what we did see, where also he was speaking to his congregation. Bujingo highlighted also really unrelated burial ceremonies that disrupt also productivity, and he also proposed adopting practices from the Western countries, such as using what we call refrigerated storage for bodies, and keeping funeral also attendees, and that's something which we did see happening in there. And he suggested limiting the number of participants to essential personnel, such as grave diggers, pallbearers, and religious leaders, to curb excessive spending. And Bujingo also warned about conmen infiltrating funerals also to steal from mourners, and they masters art of also wailing and gain trust, and eventually also fleece people of money and valuables. He also warned of that. What do you think about that? Do you think these regulations are very much key? Do you think this, of course, will be bringing something tangible? And we did see Baka Mugabe, the chairperson of Parliament's Legal Committee, expressed strong support for the proposal, as he emphasized the need for Uganda to follow Kenya's model, where weekends are designated as official burial days and the bodies are stored in funeral homes until then. What about for us Muslims, where we say burial should never be delayed? Because in Islam, where I subscribe to, there are 3 things that also must not be delayed. One of them is marriage. Then secondly is burial, because for marriages, if at all people mature and they feel they need to get married, we always encourage not to delay that, because if we delay that, then we're going to be seeing them engaging in zina, which is unlawful sex, and that also is a sin, and that is where it becomes a challenge. Then the second one is burial. Once somebody is dead, we are always encouraged to bury them, and the last thing we can offer for them is just the last funeral prayer, which also really is very, very much good, and also really, which we feel has been the tradition. But as the proposal, where if at all I done on Monday, will it be proper for me to be kept up to Saturday? Because for Islam, if you die today, if I happen to die right now, by 4 p.m. I will be buried. And if I die right now, because there's no way I'm going to be delayed, by 4 p.m. I will be buried. If you die in the night, by morning, by midday at most, you have to be buried. So I think it is something also really which we feel is very much controversial, and we are waiting for responses from the rest of the clergy, because this is just from one person, and we hope also at the end of the day other also religious leaders will respond to this. Now, State Minister for ICT, that's Godfrey Kabyanga, also welcomed the idea, citing examples from his home district of Kasese, as well as some also churches have also already implemented measures to streamline federal proceedings, including limiting speeches and adhering to strict procedures. And the proposal, also if tabled and passed, could make a significant shift that is in Uganda's cultural approach to funerals, with proponents arguing it will also save time, reduce costs, and also improve national productivity. And that is where, as the viewer, also really, you also really can still share your thoughts and opinions in relation to this. Do you think it's proper for us to only designate weekends for burials? What if I die on Monday? Yes, the proposal is that the bodies must be kept in refrigerators. How many of these do we have? Because in Western Sub-region we only have one. I've known on one, which is not even within Arua city. It is actually in Nebi, where the body, if at all is to be kept for long, has moved away from Arua to Nebi. Yes, we're talking about reducing costs. How much money will that be? How much money do you think that would also be? First of all, to keep it there, you are required to pay some money. And as the viewer still, do you think this will work for us as a country? Do you think we are ready for this? You can keep your thoughts and opinions coming through, and I will be checking through them in the next hour, which is our final half of the discussions that will be coming through also, where I will be summarizing the entire day with what's happening internationally and also with what's happening in the world of sports. For now, we take a short commercial breather. When we get back, we shall be continuing the discussion from there.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Look out for StarTimes Solar to unwrap your lighting and entertainment experience this Christmas.
We wish you a Merry Christmas.
At only 700 shillings daily charge, get yourself a StarTimes S50 that comes with lighting, phone charging, strong lithium battery, radio with a flash port and a Bluetooth speaker. For more entertainment needs, get yourself a StarTimes S130 that comes with an extra 32-inch TV screen and 2 years free StarTimes subscription. StarTimes Solar, more than just solar.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
All right, welcome back into the final half of this discussions for the day, and this is still the KOKOLIRIKO live show on West Nile TV with me, Farish Majid, and of course our final destination remains, that is 9 o'clock. That's and I will be paving way for the next crew to come. That is of the Aeola's news bulletin with Fete Manuel, and they will be here to also let you know of what's happening and what is making rounds in the world of news. But before that, we are still going to be continuing the discussion, and we still have lots more that we are going to be discussing with you. And earlier on we were talking about issues of emergencies, and remember the learners are returning back home, and this is really where we feel they must also be treated well, and they must be accorded that environment that is a bit enabling, so that also they did not have also the issues where they also did not fall in trouble. And we hope at the right time also that we are going to be also living safely with our children because they are returning back home. How ready are we to receive them is really what matters, because if we do not also prepare to receive them, then that's going to be a great challenge. Challenge also which may be very, very much also on our side. And that is one thing also which we did see happening. And we discussed a lot of issues. And remember, all that also will be discussed also in the, and in these remaining few minutes, we are going to be looking at some of the stories happening nationally. And we shall be touching also what's happening internationally. And all this is to make sure that you are not left out. And remember, recently we did see maybe Catholic Diocese receiving a new bishop, and that is something also which excited many. Now the newly appointed bishop of Nebi Diocese has outlined several tasks as he intends to also execute which he also intends to also, as he embarks on his pastoral calling. And Pope Francis appointed Reverend Dr. Constantine Aropini a 50-year-old Archbishop of Nebi Diocese last week, and the announcement was made by the Archbishop, that's Raphael Omonyi Wakorasde at Nebi Catholic Cathedral. That was last Tuesday, and that is where many people have been excited. I remember the bishop who also started from Malautaboy to bishop also is coming up, and now many people have been asking what lies ahead of him as the new Nebi cleric, and that is something also which many people have been asking themselves. But I really want to say we are keenly following up on. We hope at the right time also we are seeing also that happening, and we hope at the right time also you also support him in terms of also making sure that you do what he's going to be asking you to do, because many times some people not want to listen to the clergy, and then the clergy also tell you good things, and that is where we are expecting him, and we want to welcome him on board in a special way. We want to welcome him as to Nebi Diocese, and that is where we hope at the right time also he will be doing whatever is also really lying ahead of him, because he has a huge task ahead of him, and I really want to encourage him to also invest himself in one of those issues already which also has been affecting that area in there, and he has to identify what has been affecting the area mostly. I wouldn't want to mention that, but I hope at the right time also he will be dealing with those issues, most especially those issues that are being affecting the society. We have had issues where post houses are being burnt down on accusations of here and there, and also the issues of encroachment of also people are copying behaviors from DRC have always been there, and we hope at the right time he will be giving also interest to also identify some of those gaps, and he has to talk to people about them and let people also really these some of those bad practices, and that is where we hope at the right time people are therefore also will be also really making sure they change and also improve their issues, so their livelihoods in relation to some of those issues which we feel are very, very much good for us to talk about. And that is what we are going to pose with the discussions, and we hope at the right time also really that is where we shall be seeing also that happening. And activists push for refugee bail rights in Uganda. Remember, the refugees sometimes only face a lot of challenges. Once being arrested, it becomes a challenge for them to solely be given bail, and that is where today now activists are pushing for bail application for the citizens, for the refugees. And if you look at bail application, it's a right of the citizens of Uganda to also have the bail once the conditions are also already met. And that is one issue. So now we are seeing activists also pulling for the same and asking for the same to be also extended. That is to what we call the refugees. And what do you think about that? Do you think it's timely for us to be talking about bail for the refugees? What if somebody gets the bail and escapes? How safe could that be? And that is where it becomes a great challenge to also trace where they're going and where they're also hiding. And now we are seeing activists in Uganda on Saturday Sunday afternoon convened to push for amendments that is the country's legal framework to better accommodate the rights of the refugees, which among others is to also have bail included for them. Now Uganda currently hosts over 1.7 million refugees and asylum seekers, that's according to government data, and it's where in case there are problems, it becomes very much difficult for them to also access bail. And now the activists are calling and also calling for government to advocate for some of these bail applications, and that is where they feel something also should be done to make sure that these people get bail. And now majority of Ugandan refugees are from neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo and South Sudan who are currently residing in Uganda, while most of them reside inside camps, where approximately 9% of the refugees are in urban areas, primarily in Koboko, Wakiso, Arua district, and Arua city as well in there. Now the refugee-led network, that is Chairperson John Bolingo Ntahira, used the conference to urge refugees to abide by the Ugandan laws. And he added that also after that, I lived in the streets of Old Kampala despite these difficult beginnings. I have since been also really able to change the lives of many refugees and members of the host communities, and that is according to him. And now on his part, Juman East Member of Parliament, that's James Bawawi, observed that many refugees have resorted to breaking laws because of the hunger they face, which is really, really very much wrong, and hunger should not be the extreme of becoming a thief. And that is where also it is very much bad for us to sort of be seeing that, and that is where we hope the 2 weeks, that's also where we did see the Member of Parliament saying 2 weeks ago, they also lost a refugee in Maji refugee settlement in Ajuma district. That is where also he had gone to also really break somebody's door. Very much quite sad and very much embarrassing, and I hope at the end of the day, all these issues are very much difficult for us to also really buy and accept as a country, but we hope at the right time people also really will be changing their mindset, and we hope at the right time also really they will be also really getting the safe intervention that they deserve, and that's how we also really want to keep informed. And we hope at the right time also really the refugees, first of all, who are residing in this country, you must also resist some tendencies of breaking the laws of this country, because this is a country that has also accorded for that environment, because at one time also we were in those countries as refugees. So meaning we also have to respect the laws governing this country, and we must also really do what it takes to make sure that we are not also really left out on some of those issues in there. World Health Organization to launch global status report on drowning prevention, and that's what we're seeing this morning. Remember, people also continue to drown. Recently, we also did support drowning on Pakwat. One of those actually is the engineer attached to UNRWA who drowned as he was trying to save lives of persons who were trapped in the taxi in there, and that is where within the World Health Organization will now unveil its highly anticipated global status report on drowning prevention, the report that is sold on 2024, that will be on December of this month. That is solely where we shall be seeing that happening on the 13th. And now the virtual launch event, or the virtual launch of the event marks what we call a decade since the release of World Health Organization's first global report that is on drowning, leading but often overlooked cause of death. That's worldwide. And remember, if you really talk about issues of drowning, many times we have had people drowning. Recently, we were able to see it happening in DRC. And some people on boat, and the boat capsized and people died. And that's also another issue where we must also interest ourselves in ensuring that we draw strategies of ending drowning, because many times our people travel without the safety gear. They just move in without those life jackets. People just sit on the boats comfortably, and in case of disasters, we lose lives. So I think it's important for us to also advocate for those measures, most especially safety measures. For instance, putting on the protective gear like the life jackets, and then assessing the weather before traveling, because sometimes wind is also what makes these boats capsize. We have had stories internationally, nationally, regionally. Recently, we also had stories. Just in Pakwachia, we have had these stories. Over time in River Nile, we also have had these stories where people drown in the River Nile. So I think it's also something which we must also really give keen interest to as we get to move on. And globally, drowning is presented as an instant rather than what we call a public health issue, thus limiting deliberate interventions, now described as the first report of its kind to provide what we call country-specific data on drowning rates and prevention efforts. The 2024 report will analyze information from 109 nations, which among others, Uganda is inclusive. Now, while Health Organization anticipates the findings, will offer valuable insights that policymakers, health professionals, and advocates also striving to reduce drowning fatalities. And the significance of the report is particularly urgent for Uganda, where drowning remains a critical public issue. And according to Uganda Police Marine Unit, the country loses estimated that's 436 lives annually to drowning. That's in the districts near water bodies. Now, Marigalis, for example, reports over 24 drowning deaths. That's per 100 people. And 2003 police annual crime report for that revealed that 108 drowning fatalities occurred. That's in Uganda water bodies, accounting for 65% of all marine incidents. Now, the grim also statistics review also have spurred action, where the Makerere School of Public Health, in partnership with Richard Uganda and Ministry of Water and Environment, launched a comprehensive drowning prevention program to address the crisis. And now the program emphasizes education, community outreach, and enhanced safety measures for high-risk population. If you look at our high-risk population today, you will look at people living around Mariokolo, Obongi, who are actually along the banks of River Nile. So I think it's also really important for them to also have this training, and for us to talk to them about these risk measures. Sometimes people just move on these water bodies without assessing the risk. People just move into water bodies without even knowing what they are likely to encounter. So I think it's also high time that we talk to them about the risks of also drowning, because drowning indeed remains a great concern for us to also be able to advocate for. I think it's also very much important that these people interest themselves in ending drowning, and it's quite possible, and we can also be able to ensure that by simply and adhering to also the calls of also ensuring that. Now, recent tragedies highlight the urgency of such interventions, where November 24th, police recovered the body of an identified man from River Mpologoma in Butaga. This is just 3 days after a heroic also rescue operation turned into fatal also when UNRWA also engineer Yahya Hassan also drowned in River Tanji while attempting to save passengers stranded. That's in the river, also flooded taxi also along the Pakwat Niue Road. And globally, we are also seeing occasions such also as the Global Health Advocacy also incubator have over the years taken also support civil society organizations and advocates in more than 40 countries to pass what we call health policies that save also lives and reduce diseases and prevent injuries. And it's really something which we must also really be able to advocate for as we get to move on. And that's how we shall be seeing also that happening. And we hope at the right time also, of course, that also will be ending. And heavy storm destroys St. Stephen's Church in Nakasongola. We're still talking about heavy rains and floodings. Now we're seeing Nakasongola destroying church. And that is where we must also pray to God as we are in those houses, so that so God also does not make also these rains too much, where we reach an extent of also really losing our churches. And we did see also the roof being destroyed and put down as a result of the heavy downpour. And now congregants at St. Stephen's Church of Uganda, that's in Lwampanga in Nakasongola district, were also left in shock after heavy storm fueled by rains by Lake Choga caused the collapse, that is, of their church building on the night of December 1st. And that is where we did see the incident which occurred around 9 p.m. reduced partially complete structure of the ruins. And Betty Nalungunye, a congregant, also really explained that the building, which also really was still under construction, lacked doors and windows, leaving gaps in also what we call under the proper section. That is what we did see also really the rains also really causing havoc on. And we hope at the right time, people also, of course, will be desisting from some of those practices. And we hope also with those interventions, people must therefore also really pray that also really their houses are not destroyed. And we hope at the right time, that also of course, will be also really avoiding those deaths. We hope at the right time also people will not die as a result of these heavy rains, because if at all you're not going to be destroyed, dying as a result of drowning, then the house may fall on you. So I think it's also something which we must also really interest ourselves in talking about. Leaving that discussion aside, dozens killed in crash at Guinea football match. Another story we're seeing, where also at least 56 people have been killed in second crash also in a football match that is in Guinea's second largest city, that is of Nkerekore, and in Nzerekore. That's also where we did see the government also commenting on that. That's on the BBC, where we did see the death toll is also disputed by many in the country. We also believe that the true number of dead is close to 100, and now some reports indicate that the event solely unraveled following a decision by the referee, who sent off 2 players from the visiting team as Labe and awarded a controversial penalty kick. And then an inquiry is being launched to find also those responsible, according to us, Prime Minister Oriba, who said also in a statement calling the events tragic and offering his condolences to the bereaved families. And really, you hear people also sometimes take football as passionate, and if now reach an extent of also really losing lives just because of football match, then that is quite wrong. And that's where we always say the referees must always be ethical. They must always be really official in terms of doing their works. That's why we call them the official match, or the officials of the match. But if at all we start seeing them also engaging in activities that also attempt to be corrupt, then you're going to be seeing community members fighting, which may not also really be very much right in there. And Prime Minister Ba also paid tribute that the dozens of people killed and promised full medical and psychological support to all those injured. Now Guinea's football body, that's Figurita, has also called it a moment of intense pain, and say the football also is meant to unite hearts and bring mind closer, not also to cause tragedy and also really pain for people in there. And that is where we feel people must also really be able to take football as something also that can also really unite apart, just like how we have seen it in Guinea. And I believe also this also could happen in any other country apart from also Guinea. So it also sends a signal to the rest of the countries that the referees must also not engage in activities that attempt to be corrupt, and also which may also divide the people and also the fans at times. And that is where we hope that also will be very much important for them to learn from. And according to Mr. Sokuvogi, the stadium also in which the stadium, the Sunday's crash occurred, that also in our first project was decades ago, and that is where we did see the crash collapsing. So I think it's already very much bad, and I really want to say in those areas where this happens, then let's also make sure that these games are first of all in areas where people may not also have these issues of rioting. So I think it's also where we want to pause with that discussion as we get to move on still within what's happening in the world of sports. We also want to pray with the people of Guinea that the souls of those who died in that incident rest in eternal peace in there. And that's where we are going to pause with these discussions. But as always, we want to also look at what's happening in the other areas. If you look at what's happening, you are already in the world of sports, we are still witnessing a lot happening also really in different sectors where the four big league is back, where we're still seeing teams from Northern Uganda. I want to say Northern Uganda because West Nile teams are also doing very well as well. Not forgetting also other teams from Northern Uganda. If you look at Black Power from Lira, it's also doing quite well. So I think I should also say Northern Uganda is really doing very much well. And that's how we also want to say that more details of that will, of course, be coming through on also what we call at the whistle time, that's from 2 to 3 p.m. with Owen Ezaga. And if you look at our teams, right now, Black Power is on top of the log. We're also having teams also like Gaddafi in the 2nd place in there, and Onduparaka Football Club is the 4th place. Medical Calvary is also already in there. They're also topping the league. Really, you know that our teams are doing very much well. And really, I want to say Medical Calvary is actually the first team on the log currently. And that means we are not doing badly when it comes to the leagues in there. And more details of that will be coming through. That is on the whistle time. And that is where we are going to pause with our discussion. The English Premier, the Southern Uganda Premier League as well is back. Really, you know that also really a lot of things are happening. Surprises are happening. And today, we are also seeing teams that used to top are not also really very much in the top, and they're also struggling. Meanwhile, the English Premier League, one that's happening, and some of the clubs are also having the worst of their moments at this time in here, and where we are seeing things like Manchester City not doing very much well. But I really want to assure you, in the English Premier League, Liverpool is on the top of log, and Arsenal is in the 2nd place, but Manchester City is still finding its way to get into the top. More of the details of that will be coming through on the